This year, we celebrated a new birth of freedom as Barack Obama, America's first African-American president, took the oath of office on January 20th. But some 50 years ago, on January 12, 1959, the face of American music was changed forever. A new sound emerged from a white bungalow at 2648 Grand Boulevard in Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City capital of the country. The sign, Hitsville, USA, hung outside the two-story house, the home of Berry Gordy's Motown Records, which revolutionized popular music. Berry Gordy was the founder of Motown. A former boxer and one-time record store owner, Berry Gordy Jr. borrowed $800 from his family to start a record label, Motown Records. 15 years later, it became the largest and most successful business owned by an African American in the United States, despite the roadblocks of racism and pre-civil rights. Gordy's dream propelled such music legends as Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, Diana Ross and the Supremes, The Temptations, The Four Tops, Marvin Gaye, Gladys Knight, and the Jackson 5 to superstardom.
Most importantly, Motown became a bridge that brought African American and white audiences together. As Motown legend Smokey Robinson noted, on the very first day of Motown, Berry sat us down and said, "We are not going to make black music. We are going to make music for the world." It was the company mission. Motown changed people's perceptions of black music. Black rock and roll musicians of the 1950s had seen many of their original hit tunes covered by white musicians, with these covers usually achieving more fame and sales success than the originals. But Motown changed that. Motown music was a dream fulfilled for black culture. When Motown records hit record stores at first, the shops wouldn't even stock albums with blacks on the cover. For instance, the Isley Brothers' This Old Heart of Mine has 2 white teenagers on the cover. Soon, Big Town Radio played Motown. Then white artists, including Frank Sinatra, began to sing acknowledged Motown hits. Even the Beatles recorded some Motown hits, including Please Mr. Postman and Money. By the early 1960s, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, along with teenagers everywhere, were calling out around the world.
Martha Reeves began her career at Motown as a secretary. Along with the Vandellas, she recorded such hits as Heatwave, Jimmy Mack, Quicksand, and of course, Dancing in the Streets. Martha Reeves and the Vandellas were one of the popular groups to perform for Motown. But without a doubt, Diana Ross and the Supremes were Berry Gordy's most successful girl groups and one of the most successful acts in pop history. In 5 years, they had 12 #1 hits, 5 in a row after Where Did Our Love Go in 1964. Someday We'll Be Together was Diana Ross's farewell song with the Supremes from 1970. Diana, Mary Wilson, and Florence Ballard, the 3 original Supremes, were originally known as the Primettes. They were discovered by Berry Gordy in Detroit, where the trio grew up together in the Brewster Housing Project. Determined to leave an impression on Gordy, the Primettes frequented his Hitsville, USA recording studio every day after school. Eventually, they convinced Gordy to allow them to contribute handclaps and background vocals for the songs of other Motown artists, including Marvin Gaye and Mary Wells. In January 1961, Gordy finally agreed to sign the girls to his label. By 1965, the Supremes were international stars. They toured the world, becoming almost as popular abroad as they were in the U.S. The Supremes became one of the first black musical acts to achieve complete and sustained crossover success. The group became one of the first black musical acts to appear regularly on television programs such as Hullabaloo, The Hollywood Palace, The Della Reese Show, and most notably, The Ed Sullivan Show. The Supremes' life story was the basis of the Broadway musical and hit movie Dreamgirls. Today, we celebrate their 1967 hit, Reflections. After all, that is what we are doing today, looking back and celebrating some of the greatest popular music of all time.
The Temptations were one of the finest vocal groups of the 60s soul. They could outdress, outdance, and outsing just about anybody. Just as the Supremes were originally known as the Primettes, the Temptations were originally called the Primes. The classic lineup was Otis Williams, Melvin Franklin, Paul Williams, Eddie Kendricks, and David Ruffin. Beyond the fabulous singing, the Temps became known for flawless presentations and smooth stepping with the Temptation Walk. When the 60s and 70s turned political, the Temps got serious. They changed their tone, dress, and music with tunes like Runaway Child, Cloud 9, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and Ball of Confusion. Even though the group had been formed in Detroit in the early 1960s, many members came from the South. The group's songs reflected its background. The Temptations' music incorporated church and gospel roots. Many of the songs, including The Way You Do Things You Do and Since I Lost My Baby, were written by another Motown recording artist, Smokey Robinson. We now present one of the group's most famous songs, My Girl, from 1965. This tune, also penned by Smokey, marked the debut of David Ruffin on lead vocals.
Mary Wells was just 17 when she auditioned for Berry Gordy in 1960. She helped define the early sounds of Motown with hits like The One Who Really Loves You and Two Lovers, which, like so many other Motown classics, were written by Smokey Robinson. Since you just heard My Girl, we thought we would follow up with 1964's My Guy, which happens to be Mary Wells' biggest Motown hit ever.
In the beginning, there were the Miracles. They created some of the best-known songs in popular music history, including Ooh Baby Baby, Going to a Go-Go, I Sicken That Emotion, You Really Got a Hold on Me, and Tears of a Clown. Pure chants by William Smokey Robinson, Warren Pete Moore, Ronnie White, Bobby Rogers, and his cousin Claudette, together with Berry Gordy. Then called the Matadors, the quintet audition for Jackie Wilson's manager one day in 1957. But Berry Gordy happened to be in the building working with Wilson that day. The Miracles, most of who were still in high school, had something he liked, and part of it was their original songs. Berry taught Smokey how to write songs. Eventually, they began to collaborate. But before they could record, the name Matadors had to go, and out of the hat came the Miracles. One of the group's first hits was Shop Around back in 1960. Smokey would grow into a prolific and accomplished songwriter. He married fellow Miracle Claudette. They had 2 children. He was an equally effective record producer, Motown executive, and not to mention a successful solo recording artist once he left the Miracles in 1972. But above all, his pleading, silky falsetto is the most thrilling among Motown's wonderfully distinctive lead vocalists. We now present one of Motown's most beautiful ballads ever. Here is Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, the tracks of My Tears, a hit from 1967.
And now a tribute to some of Motown's unsung heroes. The Funk Brothers was the nickname of Detroit, Michigan session musicians who performed the backing to most Motown Records recordings from 1959 until 1972 when the company moved to Los Angeles. The Funk Brothers played on Motown hits such as My Girl, I Heard It With a Grapevine, Baby Love, and Signed, Sealed, Delivered, I'm Yours. The role of the Funk Brothers is described in Paul Justman's 2002 documentary film, Standing in the Shadows of Motown. The opening titles proclaim the Funk Brothers as having played on more #1 records than the Beatles, Elvis, the Rolling Stones, and the Beach Boys combined. The term funky as an adjective came to be associated with up-tempo, southern-styled soul music in the second half of the 1960s. The term funk as a noun is typically associated with up-tempo soul music from the 1970s onwards.
Marvin Gaye was an American singer, songwriter, drummer, pianist, and instrumentalist with a 3-octave vocal range. Gaye ranked as the Motown's top-selling solo artist during the 1960s. In 2008, the American music magazine Rolling Stone ranked Gaye number 6 on its list of the greatest singers of all time. Born in Washington, D.C., the son of a minister, Marvin sang in his father's church as a boy and